I would submit to you that we're dealing with some misconceptions, and that these misconceptions are non-trivial. They help explain part of our predicament, our inability to defend who we are and what we are. One misconception is that the Cold War was an era of predictability, stability, and relative peace. You know that misconception? I can tell you, the Cold War was totally unpredictable. There were crises all the time. There was risk of Armageddon several times, and not just during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the famous one. There were more than 100 wars around the world during the Cold War. Many more wars than since the Cold War ended. 1 million Vietnamese died. 1 million Afghanis died. That wasn't exactly predictable, stable, and relative peace, was it? The second misconception I would point to is that the current moment is one of profound instability, profound unpredictability, and war. I got to tell you, that's just not true. There is a lot less war now than there was during the Cold War. And there's a lot more predictability than there was during the Cold War. I'd be happy to go into various different examples to illustrate those points. A third misconception, I'll only do 3, is the so-called clash of civilizations. This is my favorite one because this is the panic that sets in when poorer and darker parts of the world begin to gain a little bit of power and say in the international system. That's known as a clash of civilizations. I just don't think that's true. I don't think there's a clash of civilizations. What people are saying when they say the contemporary world, our world now, is, quote, dangerously unstable, what they're saying is that they have now television 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with 600 channels. That's what they're saying. We're lucky we didn't have that during the Cold War. Can you imagine 24/7, 600 channel television about the nuclear Armageddon incidents when we almost fired at them and they almost fired at us? Now, having fought and won the very difficult Cold War, the West is poised somehow to lose the post-Cold War. This is absolutely astonishing. The Cold War was extremely difficult. Communism was a menace. It was a menace predominantly to its own people. The Cold War was necessary. It was not a misunderstanding. Not everything in the Cold War was necessary. Not everything in the Cold War was beneficent. But nonetheless, it was difficult and necessary, and the Western sphere of influence won that Cold War. And now we have the post-Cold War, and we're on the precipice of losing it. Frankly, I'm completely puzzled by this, how we could have gotten into this astonishing situation. So the topic of my Sphere of Influence 3 lectures is either having an international order or not having one, because that's what we currently face. When you have an international order, you can criticize it. The Americans don't understand this, the Americans don't understand that, the Americans shouldn't do this, the Americans shouldn't do that. That criticism is necessary and important. But when you don't have an international order, you can't really criticize it. That's the path that we're on. We were on that path before Trump, and we're on that path now. I was younger, which actually was not that long ago. We had Steve Jobs, we had Johnny Cash, and we had Bob Hope. Now, that's right, no Jobs, no Cash, no hope. I know what you're thinking. What's going to happen if Kevin Bacon dies? That's it. Might as well give up completely. No bacon. You know, Jan Wienermüller, who gave the lectures last year, as a distinguished political theorist actually based at Princeton University, he's here this year, but when he saw that I was giving these lectures, he fled the country. He's not in Austria right now. Ivan Krastyev, who is a permanent member of the Institute, who invited me to give the lectures, also vanished from the country days before I arrived. Shalini tried to escape, and she hurt herself and didn't get out. You can see the injury to her leg, which is evidence of her attempted escape. So what explains why you're here, I don't know. Everyone else, it seems, understood. We do these distinguished lectures at my home institution, Princeton University, the sequence of 3 distinguished lectures, and I have to say, it is the principal way that we deflate people's reputations. We invite a famous person. They come thinking they must say something profound. They attempt to say something profound, and you can just see the reputation deflating in the room. The second lecture has half the number of people as the first, and they are even more angry because they came to the second. And then the third lecture is a dialogue between the host and the lecturer. Maybe it works differently here. Yes, we will. Exactly what I was thinking. Anyway, my reputation will also deflate, but I have the fortune of not having such an inflated reputation to begin with. So the deflation can only go so far. I also have the advantage that I can avoid the profound and focus only on the banal, which is what I'm going to do in the 3 lectures today. Oh, by the way, this is a course that I give, and this is the exam, History and Geography. I'm sorry you can't see it, but it says name the smaller rivers that run into the Nile, and the person put the answer, the juveniles. The second question here, name 6 animals that live specifically in the Arctic. And they wrote for the 6 animals, 2 polar bears and 4 seals. Yeah, $65,000 a year, Princeton University. That's how we grade in the U.S. A is what you get for showing up, because you're paying that kind of money. And F is what you get when you can't answer the questions in my class. Here's a map of the Middle East. You can see Iran, and you can see the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, right? Now, the Shia are the darker green, and the Sunni are the lighter green. And you can see that it lines up pretty well. The Shia are on this side, in kind of an arc, and the Sunni are on the underside, in kind of an arc. Right? So if you were thinking about a sphere of influence, the proxy war between Iran and Saudi, you would say to yourself, they're stalemated. They're stalemated. Neither one, including Iran, can possibly dominate the whole region. And the reason they're stalemated is not because of anything they did or didn't do. It's because of the different color circles. The light color circles are Sunni. The dark color circles, as I said, are Shia. So Iran's influence is inherently limited. And so if you understand this, what would you do? You would make an agreement, even not necessarily a very good one, to make sure Iran didn't get a nuclear bomb. Because once you take the nuclear bomb out of Iran's hands, then you get the Sunni-Shia divide, right, to hold Iran down. That doesn't mean that Iran can't do many things. It can. It can finance Hezbollah. It can do many, many things, right? But nonetheless, the strategic thinking, as long as they don't have the bomb, well, they can't dominate their region as much mischief as they might want to cause. Now, this is not to say that Iran is evil and Saudi is good. I take no stance on either one, who's good and who's evil. Iran is a fantastic, incredible civilization. If you've been to any art museum that's worth the name of an art museum and walk through the whole thing, you invariably come to a section that is absolutely mind-blowing, and it's Persian culture, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about who's better or worse as people or whose culture is significant or insignificant. It's an incredible civilization. We're talking about geopolitics and balance of power. Now, you can say that the nuclear deal was very one-sided and was not well negotiated and all sorts of critiques of the nuclear deal. But if you understand geopolitics and the ability to dominate or not dominate a region, this map is all you need to see. Okay, here's another important map. There are 32 million people, as you know, live in Kurdistan. But Kurdistan doesn't exist. And until this question burns itself all the way through that Middle Eastern map, you got mayhem as far as the eye can see. Until there's a resolution of this question, you know the Kurds were promised a state in the Versailles Treaty. It never happened, right? So, but this question is about Turkey, it's about Syria, it's about Iraq, it's about Iran, it's also even about Armenia, right? So if you're thinking about getting involved in the Middle East, this, whatever you do, is going to burn and burn and burn. Because should they get to the point where they get their Kurdistan, the Iraqi Kurds and the Turkey Kurds, they don't agree on what Kurdistan should look like. So that's when they get to have a civil war about what Kurdistan should look like. So you can project this forward, as any person, elementary geopolitics would, and you can say to yourself, do I want to get anywhere near this? Do I want to be involved in this? Or if you're a humanitarian and you say, you know, many people are dying, this is a terrible situation, how can I get involved? And the answer is, you can't stop the bleeding, no matter how much aid you bring, unless you can resolve this political, geopolitical question. You can only kind of help the people in need, but you cannot get to peace and prosperity unless 32 million people are somehow wiped out, which I hope is not going to happen. So this is sphere of influence thinking, right? We saw the Sunni-Shia divide. Now we see this underlay under the Middle Eastern map. Every one of these states is in play, its geography, its integrity, because of this Kurdistan problem. I could list other issues. The Kurdistan one is one of the biggest. I'm just pointing out what the Middle East looks like. Okay.